Namaste, yogis. This is Adrienne.
And Mia.
Welcome to How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. Oh my God, we talked to Chaneeka for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
just about,
close to 3.
Yeah, just about as long as Johnny Southside. And we had so much fun doing it, but there's no commentary for us to talk about because we talked about so much shit. So I want you guys to just enjoy this episode, have fun with learning about Chaneeka. We discussed a lot of really interesting things, and Mia's going to do an awesome follow-up episode for us the next Monday.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Bye. Namaste, yogis. This is Adrienne.
And Mia.
And our special guest, Chaneeka. Welcome.
Yay.
How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. So today we're interviewing Chaneeka. We met Chaneeka. God, when did I meet you?
September 2021.
It was a while ago. No, because I met you before
we
teacher
met
training.
before the teacher training. Yes.
Because you used to come to my class.
Yes, indeed.
It's been a while.
It has.
But Chaneeka went through a teacher training program that I was a part of last fall. Last fall.
September is when it started.
And then you graduated in February.
Yeah.
And now you're a yoga teacher.
So why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Okay. Hello. My name is Chaneeka. I am 32 years. Gosh, what do you even say?
I know, right? It's weird. It's weird.
Okay.
Talk about what, your job, your family.
What you do. Anything.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm married to my wife of 4 years. We have a 5-year-old named Damien. And I'm also in the service. I'm in the Army, and I've been in the Army for 13 years now. Now I am a social worker, so a behavioral health officer. And before I was a chaplain assistant, assisting chaplains for 12 years.
What are chaplains?
Like priests and
Okay,
pastors,
that's what
ministers.
In the military.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That must have been, so what kind of roles did they do, or what was their role in the Army as a chaplain? Like, were they in the hospital situation, or were they in boot camp or something?
Yeah, so they have chaplains in every type of unit.
Wow.
In hospitals. I was a hospital chaplain assistant. Wow. They have chaplains in basic training, of course, but they have chaplains everywhere. Chaplains deploy with soldiers, special forces, all that.
That's amazing. I didn't know that they did that.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do in assisting the chaplain?
So I set up for all sorts of services. Chaplain assistants, we mainly worked in chapels, and so we would set up for all the services, and we would have to know how to set up for every service.
Oh, for all the different religions?
All the different religions. And we would do things like prayer breakfasts and deployment retreats or pre-deployment retreats or post-deployment retreats.
Oh, wow.
Family retreats, marriage seminars, and we pretty much did everything funding-wise. So all the funding for those things, we orchestrated that as chaplain assistants. We oftentimes did prayers if the chaplain wasn't there or if the chaplain couldn't do it. I know when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, a lot of the chaplains per their denomination couldn't serve same-sex couples. So sometimes I would have to teach couples retreats because there would be same-sex couples that came and the chaplains couldn't teach.
Wow.
So, yeah.
When was that repealed? I was just thinking about that the other day.
Gosh, when was that? Wasn't that
it must have
2016?
Yeah, I was going to say, because I went through my teacher training with a woman that was in the Army, and her wife was also in the Army. And before, that was like 2013, 2014, it was still Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I believe. Right. So it must have just been a few years after that.
Yeah, yeah.
How was that for you? You're married.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean.
Yeah, so my wife and I actually met at a high school. And so right when I was going into the military, we were still dating. And I was like mentally and emotionally preparing myself to live a double life, like to be with her and be in the military. And it just so happened that as soon as my first duty station was Fort Bragg, North Carolina, And as soon as I got there, we got deployed. And her and I did not make it through the long distance at all. So,
Where did you get deployed to?
Kuwait.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, gosh. That was, man. It's been a long time since I've been brought back there.
Yeah.
That was scary. That was such a huge heart opener. There's nothing I could have done to prepare for what I experienced there. But when I got there, first of all, the weather was like a freaking blow dryer in your face every day. Like it was
awful.
So much dust. Yeah.
How old were you?
Crazy. I was 19 or 20.
So what inspired you to go into the military?
Oh my gosh, it's what I wanted to do. There was like a patriotic side of me, like my country. And then there was like, I want to go to school and there's no way I'm going to be able to afford it. Also, I want to travel the world and there's no way I'm going to be able to afford it. And yeah, I knew I could do it and I wanted to do it. So.
Wow. So what was it like when you deployed to Kuwait? How long were you there for?
I was there for 9 months.
Straight 9 months, like no furloughs or whatever.
No, I didn't get R&R because I was only there for 9 months. So the deployment was a year. Wow. And I was a late deployer, getting out of training. And so my unit was already downrange. And when I got there, they had put me on like a plane within the next 2 weeks to go and meet my unit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be terrifying.
I was just like traveling by myself, going to like another country. It was pretty crazy.
Was that the first time you like traveled internationally too? Because
yes.
you were 19. I mean, shit.
Yes, that's the first time I traveled internationally.
And you and your wife are from Richmond, Virginia.
Yes.
Virginia proud.
804.
804, baby. 804, baby.
And so at what point did y'all reconnect?
Oh my gosh. I was stationed at the Pentagon and she lived in Virginia Beach. And she had hit me up and was like, hey, pretty much was like, I'm single. And I was like, what? Me too. And then we linked up and then that was it.
Wow.
Very cool. Yeah. So let's jump in. Tell us your yoga origin story. Like, what was that first experience with yoga like?
Man, I knew this question was coming because I listened to the other ones. I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. I have no idea how it came up. I have no idea how it came up. I remember it was right like on the tail end of COVID when we PCS'd here to Texas. And I was dealing with so much frustration and rage and just anger. And I didn't know like how to channel it. And it was
that?
like,
sorry to interrupt you. Where was that coming from, that anger and that rage?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know if it was like from my past or from like, I don't know. I just felt so irritated about everything, but also it was COVID and I was in a house with a 2-year-old for the entire year. So
yeah, that would be freaking
And then
miserable.
I moved here to Texas, in the military. Man, they had just kind of messed up some paperwork and I didn't get paid for like a month or so in the middle of a move. So it was pretty crazy. And I'm like thinking in my head, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm not taking care of my family.
Yeah.
That's a big, that's a big deal to me. So that was super stressful. And then I don't know where the idea came from. I don't know, like, I have no idea, but I knew that I wanted to practice yoga and because I had never done it before that. I knew that I wanted to practice yoga and I was like, okay, I started like researching and I saw yoga and I saw it like practice as like a fitness thing. And I was like, nah, man, like I'm in the military already. I don't need
more fitness.
I don't need more fitness. I don't need any more of that. And so I was like, and so I got this idea of traditional yoga in my brain. And I was like, that's what I want to practice. And so like, of course, when you're looking it up, the Facebook algorithm starts to send you stuff that you want.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
You do one search and then you get at least 20 suggestions.
Yes. Oh my God.
So I got that, and it was an online studio, and who I still call my yoga teacher. She was doing like a 5-day thingamabob, 5-day practice that was for free. And she was teaching us the chakra system and the kosha system, but, doing it in some sort of foundational way of blah, 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 practicing traditional yoga or whatever, holistic yoga. And I was like, heck yeah. And so I did that for a week. And then after that, I joined her studio, and that's how I got here.
That's
Very
crazy.
cool. So she had you joined her online studio.
Yes, I joined her online studio,
Very
practicing
cool.
online. I bought my first yoga mat. So cool.
Who was that teacher?
Ali Van Fossen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Have you heard of her?
I have not.
Okay.
No,
All right.
no, I'm going to jot it
I
down
know.
for sure.
Yeah.
So that was when you were here in Texas too, right?
Yes.
So what now with your wife? She doesn't practice yoga.
No.
But she's been to yoga classes.
Yes.
And she's been very supportive of you too,
Yes.
which is nice. Before you found yoga, and obviously you were in the military, so you were exercising, you were doing fitness.
Right.
Did you do any other kind of, outside recreational exercise activities as a kid growing up, or, something that
Sports, group classes,
yeah, that kind of
things
thing.
Like that.
No, I wasn't very encouraged or supported to do that growing up. So
do you have a brother or sister?
yeah, I have one younger sister on my mom's side. These are the ones I grew up with.
Okay.
And then my 2 little brothers.
Now,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. How old's your sister?
My sister's like 29, and my little brother's 26, 25, and then the youngest one is 18 now. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
It's a good spread.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you go from, I'm part of this online studio and this online community, and you have this teacher,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to go find an in-person community?
Holy guacamole. I was doing the online, and then the online has a Facebook page. So they have a Facebook studio, right? And I don't really dig social media all that much. And so I don't really get on and I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't dig it that much.
Yeah, me neither.
And so I was like, I need to find an in-person. I need to find a community. I need to find something. And somehow I ended up at a sound bowl meditation. Literally.
Wow.
I literally sometimes just I just follow my heart sometimes, and I can't, my mind is still kind of trying to catch up with me. So that's kind of what this is. But yeah, so I ended up at a sound bowl meditation, and I met 2 girls there, Magenta and another yogi. And so one of the yogis was like, hey, I go to a local studio. They do full moon, not ceremonies,
Circles.
but yeah, full moon circles, new moon circles, blah, blah, blah. And I'm into that kind of stuff. So I was like, dope, okay, I'm going to go. And so I ended up going to the studio and doing that. And I did that for a few times, going to the full moon circles. And then after that, I was like, ooh, okay, I'm ready to practice in here.
You had to feel it out a little bit.
Yeah. I'm ready to practice in here. And so then I started practicing asana in that studio.
How was that?
Oh, gosh. It was interesting. I was experiencing different teachers. And I don't want to say it experiencing them in my body, but, experiencing their teaching style in my body. And I'm still new to being in person, so it was different. The variance, I like the variance.
I find it interesting that you actually, most of the people that we've talked to, it's like they knew that they needed something in their life, and movement was kind of the driving force, right?
Yeah.
Your story's different because you are looking for more peace and calm and meditation and more of the woo-woo-y stuff, right? The koshas and the chakras and all that stuff. what happened, or not what happened in your life. How were you brought up to be open to those kind of things? The woo-woo of yoga.
Oh, gosh, that's such a great question. A memory just came to mind of like a point in my life before I joined the military. And gosh, I was just going through this shit, man. And I just remember myself talking to the moon a lot because I was out at night all the time. And I guess that kind of opened me up to the woo-woo.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But then also like my mom's side of family is from Cape Verde Islands, West Africa. And so they practice Catholicism. We were raised Catholic. But when we came to Virginia, Catholicism wasn't here. And so we didn't go to church very much. But my grandmother, every morning, she would do her chants to Jesus.
Wow.
In the morning, every morning. And she was such a spiritual woman who would move like in connection to her intuition. And so a lot of the times there wasn't like a book to tell her what to do. There wasn't any of that. It was her spirit that would move her, that would push her to sing. And I would feel that. I would feel her heart. I would feel, how open she was. And that, I guess that was like, okay, this is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is it. It's not all about, the Bible or whatever else.
Right.
Like, this is how you feel it within yourself, how you can experience yourself on different levels. And so I think that's what's kind of opened me up from a very young age to experiencing that transcendental, spirit movement.
When I think about your work with the chaplain assistant, you said you had to set up all these different ceremony or different, setups for services. So you probably were also open to learning about different religions, right?
Absolutely.
What was that like? Was that cool? I mean,
yeah, that was really cool. It was such an honor to get to experience people practicing their faith, and to set up for those things regardless of how I what I learned or where I came from. It was such an honor to do that for other people, to give them that space to do that. And just over the years, it's just made me more open to, experience other people celebrating pretty much themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's the spirit within.
Tell me again what it was that drove you to yoga and the non-physical side of it.
Okay.
Because I don't think we finished that thought. Because,
Yeah. The non-physical side of it. I guess when I had the idea of practicing traditional yoga in my mind, it meant practicing the belief system. It meant practicing, honoring the people from which it came from. And that's how I wanted to honor the practice, was to do it that way.
And why, I guess, was that idea there for you? Like, how did it pop in? Or like, do you get what I'm asking, I guess?
Yeah. Because I don't want to sound,
I know.
I don't want to sound like a turd, but it's like, there's a lot of things that's just taken out of cultures, and you see them represented. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I did not want to be a part of that. And in some ways, like, even now, like, I feel like I am, but I know that in my heart, like, this is where I'm in the right place.
I get what you're saying now. No, and I don't think it makes you sound like a turd at all. Like,
Not at all.
appropriation of yoga is something I think about very frequently. So not a concern. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't sound like you don't sound like a turd. And
I don't want to sound like that, but that's initially what it was.
You had this feeling like, I want to try yoga, but I don't want to do it in a way that's offensive or in a way that's appropriating or a way that's like taking it out of context.
How did you even know that yoga, what yoga was about? How did you even know that?
Oh, because I had just came from the Pentagon, and we had a group of Buddhist, or not Buddhist, Hindus. And I would sit in on their service and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard about like Shiva and all the goddesses. And I actually had lunch with the religious leader, and he was telling me about this goddess. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I know a little bit. And he's telling me more like from his side. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. So I think that's how I knew, because I just came from the Pentagon and I had just like learned so much about it. And so I knew that I wanted to practice it, but I wanted to practice it like holistically.
Yeah. And yoga's been so diluted in the West because it was brought in as more of like an exercise fitness modality, right around gymnastics timeframes, and in the US at least. And I mean, I worked at yoga studios that one of their like principles was ditch the dogma. So ditch the dogma. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why? Like, that's the good part. That's the whole reason.
You
like,
don't make money off that.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
And most people aren't open to it like you are. Mm-hmm. You know, you like most people are like, oh, I just wanted to move, you know, or I just wanted to breathe or meditate. And then all of a sudden,
but the thing is, breathing and meditating is the dogma, so they don't know what they're saying. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you triggered?
Yeah, I am.
No,
I
know.
No, I am.
I know, but that's where it starts. So usually they're like, I just want to sweat, or I just want to move, or
take a cycling class. That's
my response. Exactly. Yeah. Go ride a bike, but off a cliff. Just kidding.
You're so dark.
Just kidding.
It's like a thing.
I know, it's a total thing. I am so dark. I have to find that balance of light and darkness.
Well, and like I said, like when I first started, I had that energy in me, right? So that anger and that whatever I was feeling, and I needed to find a way to move it with love. I needed to find a way to move it with my spirit, not with like forcing, not with working out, not with running. I used to be a runner, not with any of that. Like I needed to find a way to move it with love. And there's just this feeling that I get when as I travel through like, you know, different faith backgrounds and things like this. It's just, there's something there for me at any turn that I go. I'm going to pick up some sort of goodness. So.
Yeah, and I just think the openness to all the different religions, like when I went through that training for death doula, we went through and talked about different religious kind of practices after death. Or, you know, one of them was that I can't remember what religion it is. It may be a part of like a Hinduism where when someone dies, you're not allowed to speak their name inside the house for a certain amount of time.
Interesting.
You can only talk about them outside of the house. And that was something I learned about through being open, right? And I think that's a lesson all of us can learn is we all have a connection with spirit, whatever that is to you, right? But it's being open and honest. And I think that's the space that yoga offered to you.
Absolutely.
You know?
For sure. Yeah.
When you were practicing, so I remember many times, and I've said this to you before, is that we would walk out of class and Chaneeka would be like, I fucking hate you so much. And then give me like the biggest hug. So could you please elaborate on that, please?
So
we got you here just to answer this one question that's been bugging Adrienne for a minute.
Exactly. I've asked her this
gosh,
before.
Yes. Gosh, I feel like she knows already. So along with the spiritual journey, right, that I was on, in dealing with emotions, when you got into the practice, with asana, man, it was like a fight for me. 'Cause I can be spiritual. That's who I already am. I know that. But when it comes to the body, whew, it was a battle. When you talk about anger, like when you talk about all of these things, I don't know, in my life, I've used my body for reasons that weren't true to my own heart, you know? So the battle with my body has been very serious. And so when I go to Adrienne's class and she pushes me, she's like, yes, you can. And it's like, okay, Spirit, yes, I can. Move the body, move the body. And she makes me do that. She's super directive and she makes you believe in yourself, super inspirational, pushing you past your limitations, or makes you want to push past your limitations. It's like this, I know I can because she told me I can, and I know she sees me. and it makes you want to see yourself in that change, you know? And that's hard. It's hard to see yourself on the other side of something you feel like you can't do. And so, yeah.
But you always did it.
Yeah, I know.
It was always funny to me, though, because I've never had the students say that to me. Like, I've had students be like, oh, I'm so mad at you for like a second. But she would always say, like, I'm fucking hate you right now, but I love you. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But I don't see limits.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out the change question. Can you ask it?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that too. So when you started practicing the postures, the asana, the in-studio classes with it, what was do you have a moment in time that you remember that shift from being in the space, moving your body, and then it kind of bleeding into your everyday life?
Oh, yes. That was almost immediately for me.
Tell me more.
That happened when I was doing the online studio. That happened immediately.
So
I started because I immediately started off with the kosha system, with the chakra system, and I'm a studier. I love to study. I'm definitely I like to learn. I like to learn. So that happened for me almost immediately, something that I could apply to my life. And that's why I really liked practicing yoga. You know, my teacher would always say, like, now take what you've done on the mat, off the mat. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And explain those systems and what it was you were applying.
Okay, so when it came to the chakra system, I learned so much about myself. Oh my gosh. And when I first started off, the anger and all of that inside of me, it was definitely first my solar plexus was way on the excessive side. I had so much heat, so much heat. And so it became something during my practice to focus on within myself, like to get out of the body, which is what I wanted to do, and to get into myself, get out of the body and get into myself. And so that switch happened super, super early on. And then when I got into the studios, it was like, get into the body, get out of yourself. For me, it was like that. And that was a really big switch. I didn't understand how to do that when I was really hard, which is probably why I hated you a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. No, totally. It totally makes sense, though.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, you know, yoga is the union of the two, right? So you were battling between this, I have to unite my mind and my body, my spirit and my body.
Absolutely.
And that's a hard thing to do.
Yes.
And just for our listeners that don't know about the chakra system, right, is that they're energy bundles in your body along the line of your spine.
Yes.
And there's 7 traditional ones. They start at your base of your root chakra. Then you have your sacral chakra. Then you have your solar plexus, which is what you're talking about, your heart, your throat, and your third eye.
Yes.
And your crown.
Yep.
So for those listening, it's basically a way of managing your energy, right? And understanding how am I letting life impact me?
Yeah.
What am I holding on to or what am I not taking in, you know? So then the koshas, you know, so how did she incorporate that?
The kosha system, she did every class was focused on a different body.
Mm-hmm.
So first it was the physical body. We talked a lot about like eating and things like that. And then she kind of walked us all the way into the bliss body and then all the way out. And that was so interesting to me. It's the first time I heard somebody reference the body in such a way.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of like my go-to when I need to ground myself for sure. But yeah, I just remember learning about it. And that was the first I ever heard about the kosha system.
Talk about that. Tell our listeners from your perspective what the koshas are. You don't have to like explain each one of them. Just
Okay.
like ideal.
Okay. All right. I'll do my best. So the kosha system is a culmination of all of the bodies. So the physical body, working your way into your energy body, your mental and emotional body, your bliss body. Did I get all of them?
I think so, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 4.
Yeah, it's like different layers, right?
Yeah,
Different
so
layers
different
of an onion.
layers of your being. And pretty much I like to, when I envision the kosha systems or the kosha system, just like envisioning the body of like feeling your skin or feeling the layer of your skin and feeling the material, your material self.
Mm-hmm.
The mental and emotional body just kind of brings me to my mind and what I'm thinking about and what I'm focusing on. My energy body brings me to my breath. How am I managing my breath? Like, how am I managing my energy, which kind of bleeds into the emotional and mental.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bliss body is like the little one inside, the little baby inside. I do my hands like this, but you all can't see, but I'm cupping my hands together. It's the bliss body is just the one who sees everything, the one who experiences everything, the one who is not attaching to everything, the one who is essentially you, who you are speaking for. But yeah.
That was a good way of explaining it. It was really nice. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's cool that you just, I mean, coming from Richmond, Virginia,
Yes.
you know, and like growing up, I did want to ask you about this because you are married to a woman and you grew up in Richmond, which is a pretty southern town. I lived there for 7 years. I love Richmond. It's one of my favorite cities. But what was life like growing up for you? I know I kind of went backwards, but I know. But I want to understand because you've never told me about your childhood. And if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to.
Yeah.
But I think for your story, I think a little bit might help.
Okay.
If you're comfy.
All right. Yeah, I think so. Hold on. Let me unravel my legs.
Get
here,
yourself
friends.
comfy. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just didn't know where you were.
No, I mean, my intuition has been telling me to ask you this question for a very long time, and you know it, and that's kind of
Yeah. Okay, where do I even begin? I don't know where to begin, but I'll just say you have been asking me for some time to sit and talk with you. Mm-hmm. And I to this day, I wonder why, and I wonder what you're sensing.
I don't know. I that's the thing is I don't know. And I'm fascinated because when you say like you're able to have such a spiritual being, right? And such a strong spiritual practice. But then there's anger and there's rage and there's the military and there's, growing up. I just want to know a little bit more about what your growing up was like.
Okay. So growing up, my mom worked a lot. And she was in a relationship with my stepdad. And their relationship was pretty chaotic. It was really chaotic. And it impacted us greatly. And so oftentimes I went to places like school and I often felt like super disorganized. Mm-hmm. And I don't have very many like memories from that. I do remember like being tested for like ADHD and things like that and whatever else. And it's like, no, man, I probably did have all that. But, you know, home was super chaotic and confusing. And so I grew up as a caretaker, pretty much. And a caretaker for everyone. I grew up as this like trying to soothe everything and not like really allowing myself to feel anything. It was like, I see it. What can I do to help? What can I do to like chill everybody out kind of thing? And that's a lot. That's a lot. And then growing up and going to schools, like already kind of feeling out of place because it's like, shit, no one knows what the heck's going on with me. And I don't know how to express that. And if I do, like, what's going to happen? Yeah, I also... started drinking at a really young age. So I learned some pretty unhealthy coping skills literally when I was like 13. And gosh, yeah, it was just really chaotic, moving probably every year, feeling alone a lot of the time, feeling misunderstood, feeling wrong, feeling out of place. Not feeling like I can connect with anybody, and just not seeing other people that I could connect with. I felt very alone a lot. So, and then I grew up a little bit and I started fighting. That was pretty intense.
So like fist fighting?
Like fighting.
Dude,
Like fighting.
Like really fighting?
Like really fighting.
Holy shit. So were you like a hair puller or were you a puncher?
I was a hitter.
Yeah.
I was a puncher. Yeah. Not a hair puller.
No.
Good.
Good.
Definitely not one of those.
No, it's not
good.
They're so annoying.
I know, exactly. I have actually never been in a fight, but one time I almost was, and I was terrified. And it was a girl in the lunchroom in high school. We can cut this out. And she came up to me and she was standing behind me and she said that I said something about her. And I stood up and I made fists and I held them down by my side. And I said to her, go ahead and take the first punch. I will fucking kill you. And I was like, what am I saying? I don't even know how to punch.
This is getting crazy.
I was like, oh my God. But I remember like, don't throw the first punch. I was like, I'm not throwing the first punch. I'm like, you do it. Go for it. I will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And I walked away and I had like my fingernail lines stuck in my palms because I was so scared, and she got pulled away and we didn't fight. But I was like, I don't know where that beast came from.
Yeah.
But like, that was the one moment in my life where I was like, holy shit, if I have to get into a fight, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm like, I'm screwed. And she was littler than me. I could have totally taken her ass out.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
When you were telling your story about growing up and the feeling that you had of like being alone and being a caretaker and always wanting to help and having that chaos, maybe that's what it was, because I was the caretaker growing up.
Yeah.
I took care of things. You know, my mom couldn't get her way out of a paper bag driving places or doing things. And, you know, my dad worked all the time and we were, you know, chaotic.
Yeah.
And scary.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a lot of like, you don't get to experience the emotion because everyone else is experiencing emotions that you feel the need to calm everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I still struggle with that.
Preach.
I still struggle with that. Yeah, I still struggle with that. Yeah, and also like, you might hate me for this.
Okay, go
so
for it.
me and my mom used to fight a lot too, like a lot, like
Yeah.
fist fighting.
Yeah.
Like she used to fight me, and she used to kick me out a lot too. And so I dropped out of high school in like 10th grade, and I was like getting a job and paying rent.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
As a sophomore in high school.
Yes. So I got a job, and I was like living like an adult. Like I told you, I was out at night all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys need to cut this out, but I was like dating a drug dealer too.
You don't have to. We don't have to cut that.
Way older than me.
Yeah.
Still in contact with him today though, but I don't think he's a drug dealer anymore.
Things have changed for all of us.
Yeah.
We'll get him on the podcast to tell his story about yoga changing his life.
Yes. So in between there, I was like in so many different houses, and there was a lady, and I used to call her, and I'm sorry, you guys can cut this out, but I used to call her my white mom. Mm-hmm. She adopted me pretty much.
Why would we cut that out?
I don't know.
We've had great conversations about.
I don't know. You guys need to tell me how real I can be.
I want you to be as real as ever.
All right
Yes.
then. All right. Well, yeah, I call her my white mom, and she adopted me pretty much and brought me into her house, and I ended up going back to high school. And she was a social worker, which is so crazy. Yeah, she's from Jersey too.
No way.
Yeah.
How'd you meet her?
She lived around the corner from my grandmother. And my little brother was friends with her youngest son. And so that's kind of how I met her. We would just always hang out at her house.
And so did she just know that you had been kicked out and reach out? Like, how did you end up moving in with her?
Yeah, I think one time we sat down and I told her like what was going on, and she let me move in so I could go back to school. And I tried to join the Army mad early. Like when I dropped out of high school, and I learned that they weren't accepting GEDs anymore, which sucked. Oh. So I learned that I had to go back to school in order to go to the military.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. Yeah.
Are you still in contact with your white mom?
Only on Facebook. I know.
She served a good purpose.
She did. I've had many windows throughout my life. So many windows. When I first talked about being molested as a child, I talked about it in school. And
you didn't tell me about this.
Yeah. So I talked about it in school. And of course, they found the note. The teachers did. And then I got a social worker. And
mandatory reporting.
Yes. I got a social worker, and she would do home visits and all that other stuff. My mom hated me, dude. Oh God, she hated me. And she's like, no offense, but she's like a Scorpio, and she's just so strong, and like, so she could be so mean, dude. Mm-hmm. Anyways, my mom hated me at that point in life, but it kind of all felt the same. But so I had that, and she was like the first window into like me being able to have another life.
Wow.
She was the first one. And I was like, she would take me out, and we would like go out to eat. She took me to my first basketball game. And at that time I loved basketball. And I was like, I can have this life. I can have a different life. So she was my first window. And, yeah. And then came the drug dealer.
He was your
another window.
He was my second window for sure. He was my second window. I've lived so many lives, man. I've lived so many lives. He was my second window. He helped me get through a really hard time. So while Ma, who was my white mom, she gave me a place to stay, like he gave me a car to be able to afford to go back and forth to school and do all the things that I needed to do. So I had a lot of support. But I also did have that anger. Like, why did I have to go through all of that?
You can say fuck.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
why the fuck did I have to go through all of that just to live a life that felt safe for me? And so, yeah. And so all of that kind of came with me. And it's so crazy because I was talking to my little brother like maybe 2 months ago. And he always envisions me as a UFC fighter. And I have no idea why. naturally, it's not who I am, friend.
Yeah.
Like, he still does not understand. He has this picture of Sissy, you know, and it's just like, I can't get it out of their heads that it's who I had to be.
Yeah.
It's not who I really am.
Yeah.
And he was like, Sissy, what happened to all your rage? And I was like, what the fuck have I taught them, dude? What have I done? And I'm like, boo boo, it's not here anymore. You know, it's not here anymore. And so, yeah, I kind of it was really hard for me with my family to get out of that like picture in their minds of who I was when I had to be who I was to survive.
Yeah.
And so, like, even and still, like, linking up with my siblings, like, it's cool now and it's fun. But there was a point where it was like, I can't, y'all, because I'm not who y'all think I am. I was struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was having a hard time, you know?
What do they think about this, like, who you actually are? Like, when you say, that's not me, how do they respond? Like, what's their reaction?
I feel disappointment. I feel disappointment.
Really?
I do.
Like they're mad that you're not mad. Or they're disappointed that you're not mad.
Yeah, they're disappointed that I don't react in certain ways that I used to. You guys asked, like, how did I find out, like, when yoga started coming off the mat? And that's how it would be. Like, my reactions became responses, you know? My, you know, I started thinking about collectively, how would this work? You know, is everything, you know, all really, in fact, all on me? Probably not, you know? Like, and then I gave myself space. That's what I needed. I needed space. And so when yoga started to come off of the mat, that's the first thing that I felt is I had space to just be, not be who people saw me to be, not be a little angry Black girl, not be a little angry Black woman, not be any of those. It gave me space to see myself in a universal light. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. Yeah. I'm just going to chill here, y'all.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I'm just going to chill here.
How has your relationships changed with your siblings now?
Now they see me. They see me more and more. And it's always nerve-wracking for me, though, because I'm like, dang, am I not enough? Because I'm not who they thought I was, and I'm not reacting in the way that I would have before. Because I'm not being reckless, and I'm not, like, burning the shit down, because that's what I used to fucking do.
Right.
Right? You know, that's what I used to do, is burn it down. Like, fuck it. If it's not working for me, if it's not working for everybody, burn the shit down.
And I was gonna say, I imagine in some scenarios you were burning it down like on their behalf.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I imagine you were their defender in a lot of scenarios, and so they're kind of like, "Hello, defend me."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, where'd you go?
That's so true.
I don't think it's disappointment in that you're not an angry person, but that, and like you said, you were a guardian, you were a caretaker, and now it's like, and maybe if they're not. You know, when you have that safety, it's like you always expect, or not safety per se, right? But when you have that person, you kind of expect that they're always going to be that person, and that change and that growth can be hard because now they're having to be that person for themselves, perhaps.
Yes.
And also, I mean, family dynamics, you just have, especially when you spend decades, you know, with each other, and then something doesn't go the way you expect. Even if it's sometimes for the better, you're like, what the fuck just happened? I thought you were going to yell at me. Like, I mean, and I get it. Like, even with, because like my family had some pretty volatile moments, but now my dad goes to therapy and, you know, has a counselor, has a therapist, so his parents were alcoholics. And so he goes to, you know, children of alcoholics and chaotic families, or, you know,
like Al-Anon.
Yeah, but now they have a new one that's specifically
adult
for
children for alcoholics.
And they added on and chaotic families or something, like, and something, awesome. Right? Really? So like, yes, I'll ask him the exact name because we were driving. He was telling me all about it, and so even in scenarios with him, it's like sometimes like maybe I brace expecting something that doesn't happen. I'm like, well, now I'm braced and I'm on edge because I expected something, right? And so it's not always that it's like disappointment. It's just like it's ingrained in us to have this reaction. And I notice it a lot when I'm with families that aren't like mine, where I'm like, someone's about to yell. And I'm like, oh, they didn't yell. Wow. Okay. Well, now I'm about to yell because why is no one fucking yelling around here? You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
And it's just so real. Like, I'm like, someone's about to get their ass beat. And I'm like, no one got their ass beat. Should I beat their ass? Is no one going to beat their ass? Like, because what the fuck? You know, so I'll just say, I don't think it's that they're like mad or disappointed in you, but like we have these expectations, especially for people like family who have always been there. Yeah. And then you're wired to like, I'm ready for you to trigger and this like reaction, and then it doesn't happen. And it's like, and I've read this book also as it relates to like our brain and emotions and memory and how it like, I guess, takes root, right? Like it engraves, and there's this continual path. And then when the stimuli doesn't happen, but you anticipate it to happen, even that anticipation can take you where you were going to go emotionally. Right. So it's like why when you almost get in a wreck, you still get pissed off, or you still have that panic moment or whatever it may be. Right. So it's not even, I would imagine it's not that they're upset with you, but it's just like they have this anticipation and they had this caretaker and they had this person who was defending them and burning shit down for them. And then you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Burn it down
Exactly.
for me.
Exactly.
I'm ready to be defended.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, and if you think too more about what you just said, like your fight or flight is happening, right? That's usually what it is that trigger. It's in igniting the flame, you know, or the lighter getting ready to burn the shit down. And when that happens, the thing with yoga is that you can learn how to regulate that nervous system better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what, I mean, has happened for me, but also has happened for my dad. And like, that's an amazing thing to witness.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we still can't do it. And then we're like yelling. And then it's like, I apologize that I just yelled. I noticed that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's, and which is also a crazy thing to witness. Like, at least, I mean, apologizing was not like super common in my family.
Oh, fuck. I never
and
heard
so
sorry.
like now as adults, so like, I'm like, totally fine. Thank you. Like, appreciate it.
I know.
Like,
I don't think that I've ever heard sorry from my parents. Not to bash my parents, but that just wasn't the way it was. You know, I'm older than both of you, but you know, when I grew up, not to be like, when I grew up back in the day and I had to walk uphill to school in the snow with no shoes both ways, you know, it's like my parents, they were raised like they're the authority. Authority rules, you know, and you just shut the fuck up and do what I tell you to do. And it's interesting now being a parent, and when I fuck up, and I know I fuck up, I admit it to my kids. And I say, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you like that, you know? But I was anticipating you were going to be an asshole.
Yeah. It's hard.
It is. It's really hard.
I recently went to a Reiki healing session, and the lady was talking about, we were talking about the stories we tell ourselves from childhood. Because I find those creeping up on me more often. First, it was like the thoughts. Okay, pay attention to your thoughts. Like, you know what I mean? Pay attention to your thoughts. Pay attention to when you're being hooked on a thought. And so I practiced that for much time. And now it's like the stories I'm telling myself. And where did the story come from? Where did it develop? And why am I still holding on to it?
And is it reality?
Oh,
no.
my gosh.
Oh, shit.
Of course it's not reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you give me an example of one of those stories?
Yes. So growing up, I wasn't really encouraged to do sports or extracurriculars or anything like this. It was just like school, bring your ass home, right? Take the meat out for dinner. So that's kind of what it was. But I did want to do things. I wanted to run track. I wanted to dance. I wanted to play basketball, and I did once. And I just wasn't supported in those things. I wasn't supported in like finding my way in social settings.
Yeah. Do you think that it had anything to do with the fact that you said your mom was working all the time? You were the oldest, so you were taking care of everyone else kind of thing. So that was that responsibility that you felt that you know, she could have put on you or she didn't put on you. Right. So the story can be told that way.
Absolutely. The story can be told that way, but it's my story.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the story, yeah, absolutely. Those are very legitimate things. But right now I'm dealing with the story that I'm telling myself.
Yes. Yes.
And so I wasn't very supported. And so sometimes when I go after things that I want, or I want to go after things that I want, it's like there's automatic thoughts like, you know, you're not good enough. You know, you don't have enough money to do this ever. You're not going to be supported. So why are you even trying?
Yeah.
You know, you have other people that depend on you, and you shouldn't be trying to go out into the world and reach your dreams because other people need to reach theirs and you need to support that. So that's the kind of story that keeps me distracted from my own purpose. And it keeps me just so over involved in other people's journey.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel now having a son? How do you kind of deal with being a mother now? Because, I mean, as soon as you have a kid, and I hate when people would say this to me when I was single or didn't have children. Wait till you have kids, and then everything changes. It's like, fuck off. But it does. It does change.
It does.
And it does give you a different perspective on things. Do you think that, like, how have you implemented the changes that you've made in your life to impact Damien?
Oh my gosh. Well, first responding and not reacting, because that authoritarian that you were talking about, that inner parent, I have an inner parent. And so sometimes when Damien's doing something that maybe I wasn't allowed to do as a child, there's a feeling of like jealousy or envy or something. So I dealt with that for quite some time. Like, I wasn't allowed to do that as a child. Why does he get to jump on the couch? Like, I don't know if that's like my inner child or my inner authoritarian, whatever like this. But I kind of dealt with that for a little bit. And then like also just trying to tell like Damien how I'm feeling sometimes. Not so much that he takes responsibility, but knows where I'm at in time and space. Because boundaries are really hard, obviously, as we've been talking. Those boundaries of me wanting to overstep and overhelp and overdo this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, I need to pull back. Just pull your energy back. Just pull it in. You know what I mean? Pull it together. So it's been a lot of like creating those boundaries to know that, for him to know that he doesn't have to be responsible for how I feel. But mommy is feeling. And right now you need to sit your ass down.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so it's that. And just, you know, gosh, my hairdresser would say like, she calls me a type B bitch. So a type B bitch is a bitch who doesn't know they're a bitch, right? And she says a type A bitch is a bitch who knows they're a bitch. And so she's like, I'm like squiggling between those right now, right? So in the midst of me trying not to act like, you know, my parents are trying not to raise my son how I was raised, I'm still that bitch. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still got that fire phoenix, you know, energy surging through me. So it's just accepting me for who I am, and who I am as a parent, and loving him and giving him what he needs. And, you know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of, when you were saying like I was a little jealous or envious, I almost felt like my time to rebel, because I never really had a time to rebel, was when I had kids. Because then I was like, I will let you eat whatever the fuck you want. You want chocolate? It's in the pantry right now. It's not hidden in a cabinet far up ahead behind everything else. That one fucking Snickers bar that mom still had, you know,
It's
carob. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Carob chocolate, like no sugar, all the healthy bullshit, you
That's
know?
awesome.
And I was like, there are Doritos downstairs. You can eat whatever you want. It's just so funny. So so this is kind of cool. So
That's
you're saying
hilarious.
like, hey, I'm giving myself space, right? I'm giving myself the opportunity to lead the life that I deserve.
Yes, which is so scary.
Right.
Go ahead.
And so you're practicing asana and what was the shift to sign up for teacher training?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I knew I wanted it. I knew that I wanted to teach. I knew that other people probably feel the way I felt when I first started. And I wanted to help people get through that. And so that's why I was like, yes, I want to teach. And I love to teach. Like, yeah. And so, yeah.
But that gave you opened yourself up and were like, okay, I'm walking down my dream path.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the first day of class, I was like, what the French toast have I gotten myself into? Oh my gosh. It was so like, I don't know. I was reminded of I was reminded of school and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable.
It is. And we did it online.
Yeah.
The first modules that we took, I was part of your teacher training and we were online and that was fucking hard. And it's not what we're used to in the yoga world.
Okay.
We're not used to
Or
being
even the education world. Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just not used to being far away and not in the same space,
Right.
And once we got into the space, that's when it seemed like everything shifted for our group.
Yeah.
Like everybody was like, fuck this. I'm done. I'm quitting. I hate being online. I don't know what I'm doing. And then it was like we hit the mentorship time frame and the shift happens.
Yeah. For sure.
You had a great group too.
Oh, I did. We did have a great group.
A lot. Your partner that you had, Bill.
Yes.
Like people that you never would have met outside of a yoga
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yoga has opened my life up so much. Like sometimes when I start to tell myself a story, like you're alone, you're not connected, and I start to feel isolated, I just kind of think of all the different branches of like yoga friends that I have, like all the different communities. There's been so much like this community, like YTT, and then there's another community that I'm I've went on a couple retreats with, yoga retreats. It's been super fun. And there's one that's pretty wild, fire dancers and everything.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I've got like 3 yoga families here, and all have their different energy and their different practice for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just crazy because I remember like just watching everybody with such agitation walk into the room, like so frustrated about their journey and how they didn't know how they were going to go from the point that they were at in training to the end.
Yeah.
It was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like everyone was like, but no. And we did a bunch of different exercises and we did some things together and we had some tough conversations. Like we had some tough conversations.
We did.
And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
We
'Cause
did.
You taught me a lot. I remember because, moving from being a white woman and moving from Chicago down to San Antonio and now technically from a population standpoint being a minority, right?
Okay.
White in San Antonio. And
I'm
we had,
so glad you did that. I just want to pause you and say I'm so glad.
what do you mean?
Said that.
That
Because
I'm a
when
minority?
you look at the
absolutely.
population,
I'm
you
a
are a
minority.
minority. Yes.
And you know what? And I am not trying to say like, oh, I know what it feels like now. I don't have any idea what it feels like to be a full minority.
Right.
But I am understanding how to not be a majority, right? Like not take on that role.
Yeah.
You know, but when we had the conversation and I was like, I don't know how to call people, what color, what nationality, what background. And we had this great conversation because you used the word melanated. I am a melanated woman. And I was like, that is the coolest fucking term I've ever heard. And I love that. But like learning about, I know.
Why are you laughing?
Because she was like, Chaneeka called herself a melanated woman. What does that mean? And I was like, because she came and asked me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I had to
she
ask
was like,
her.
so is that what I should be calling people? I said, no.
I know, but I did, because I said to you, I don't like saying the word black. And you had said the same thing. You're like, when I say black, it feels very harsh. It feels not, I like white to me. It's like, I kind of deserve it. Like as a white person, sometimes I feel like, you know, we kind of deserve a little bit of the dig.
Well, and I will say, and we're going very off tangent.
I know, but it's okay.
It's okay, yeah. I also think as it relates to race, like especially with, and I'm going to say the Black community at this moment, like the genesis of naming, right? Of like has gone from like, oh, African American, and now it's like, I'd say like kind of like you don't say African American, like at least what in like school, like sociology, like it was like African American is kind of, or what it feels like, let me rewind, is a much older generation is saying African American. So, and then there's also folks who say like Black, and then there are folks who say, you know, I think melanated, I don't know if anyone would be like, me and my melanated people, like, you know what I mean? But,
I love it though.
Yeah. And I know folks who call themselves melanated as an individual, but they would never say like, oh, the melanated community. Like I haven't experienced that yet. And so I think there's also just like a lot of genesis around the naming of the community. And then also some people strictly say, oh, I'm a person of color. Yeah. And some people, you know, so she's like, so what do I call everyone? I was like, you just have to follow their lead. Like people are going to call themselves and identify themselves different ways. And just wait, I guess, to see what they, you know, like. And,
No, that's good guidance. That's good guidance.
And I think also, but I mean, depending on the space you're in, it's like part of your identity and learning how other people identify. And, and I think it's identity, I know is a word that sometimes people get triggered by, also like, well, how do you choose to identify? Like you get to choose how you know what I mean? Like, but it's more so it's like, no, this is what I, at least my interpretation of identity, right? And how I choose to say it right now, is it's like, this is my experience. Yeah. Like this is who I am. And that's what I'm telling you and sharing with you. And like, that's how I identify. So,
yeah.
I think, so you said like, we're going off on a tangent, but I like to bring it back and say that this is very important, especially in the yoga community, because in our class full of like 25 people or whatever, there was only one other melanin person. And which was cool, but like, why the fuck is there only 2 people?
Yeah.
Why is there only 2 like melanin people in a class full of like 25 people? You know what I mean? Yeah, like, why is that a thing? And so, and I don't like, I don't expect you to answer, but it's a thing. 'Cause there's a discomfort for me. There's a discomfort. Like when we sat down and I was like, oh, I don't know how real y'all want me to be, but there's a barrier there for sure. And when it came time for like me to practice yoga in a yoga studio, like I'm looking around for people that look like me. That's what I'm looking for. Like I'm looking around for people that look like me. I'm looking around for somebody that I can connect with, have a deep belly laugh with, because that's what we do.
Exactly.
That's what we do. And for those, y'all can't see me, but I just motion towards my brown skin, but that's what we do. We connect in that way. And sometimes you just don't get that. I don't know. When you go into the world and like, it's just, you know, 2 brown people in a class, is just like, God dang, like,
we talked about that too.
Who am I going to connect with? Who's going to understand the way I speak and the way I see the world? And granted, like, again, yoga has given me that universal space. And that's like one thing that I just love about it. Universal. You can walk up to somebody and give them a hug and they'd be like, hey,
Yep.
you know, how are you? All is well. And you're like, yes, that's okay. It's given me that universal identity. But then also it's like, where is everybody else at that looks like me?
Yes.
You know, and what type of space like are we creating for that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I mean, in my opinion, truthfully, we're not creating it.
No.
Like, I don't think the modern yoga studio is trying to. I don't.
I agree.
And I think a whole number of reasons and symptoms and causes. I mean, in my opinion, and in fact, no, in my opinion, I mean, yoga is in the West a white dominant space and therefore is steeped in white supremacy. I mean, that's just a reality. And I think that's why it's a physical based practice. That's why it's a workout. That's why I ditched the dogma, because that is what is popular. That's what's profitable. And that's what's comfortable for white people.
Yep.
That's just a fact. And the reality is they did that because they wanted to strip it of its brownness. They wanted to strip it of its roots and its history and its culture because that's uncomfortable for white people because they don't have culture. No, I'm just kidding. Because I'm just joking.
No.
That was
No, but
I mean, y'all got a
But no.
culture. Y'all got a culture or whatever.
You got something. I don't know. But,
Whatever.
But, you know what I mean? But because that is because we're a very xenophobic country, because we're a very racist country, because of X and Y and Z, they have stripped it of all of that so that it's profitable to white people. And I have been a part of studios where they say our ideal client, right? So like when it comes to marketing and when it comes to whatever, they always say like,
I'm gonna throw up.
right, exactly. Yeah.
No,
Here's
you
our
are.
ideal client. And what they did is they named a student at the studio. And that student was a like 30-year-old white woman and skinny, you know,
Money.
super bendy money, right? And they're like, and everyone was like, what the fuck? And they're like, no, it's okay to do that because blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure, whatever. And I had like 3 margaritas. I didn't say anything. I was like, and some people said I was cracking them up because I was like, yeah, like I was being an asshole. And so I'm a type A bitch. And once I had 3 margaritas, I was like, okay.
Thank God she didn't have a 4th margarita.
I know, right? Yeah. What's the version of bitch margaritas? And so
That's hilarious.
So, you know, I think there's a lot of reasons. And then also what's crazy though, and I think so often they bring it to profit, right? They always will say, oh, that's not profitable to this. And also, and it really, and this is something we've talked about a number of times, but everyone's like, well, why would I have to say, you know, people of color welcome or black people welcome or Latinos welcome? Because yoga's for all. Yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, yeah, it's for all, but where are they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have not made them comfortable. And so like one thing that I had told, and in Raleigh, there was a studio called The Colors of Yoga. And it was owned by 2 black women.
I love
and
that.
like
Great name.
Their studio, I mean, there'd be like 1 white person there. And like, I was like, like
That would
nice, right?
I know.
A dream. Just kidding. And no.
Bad that I want to be at that
dream.
studio.
And what's funny too is they would have classes that would say like, you know, POC and then like POC and allies. Like you're not even invited.
Oh
Don't
my
come
gosh.
because like for once we just, and some people are like, how are you not going to let me come to your yoga class? And it's like, because you can go to every other fucking yoga class. And it's the kind of, you know, so all that to say, I've seen it and I've seen it be very successful. And I remember bringing up to, like I would love to have a yoga studio. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of whatever. And some of the ideas that have, for me, gone into it is like, I want teachers to be culturally competent. I want them to have done identity work. I want them to understand their own biases and be challenging them and working on them. And I want to have a diverse range of teachers.
Yeah.
Like I could get 20 white teachers right fucking now. Right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like,
They'd be right
easy.
outside the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
But it would take me time to cultivate. But also, I live on the east side. That's where I've always worked, is on the east side.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't resonate on the east side
Interesting.
versus, you know what I mean? And so, and also, truthfully, if we look at San Antonio, I know that you feel like, or, you know, statistically a minority.
Statistically,
yes.
yeah.
But also, Alamo Heights and up, no, you're not.
No,
You're
fuck
still
it.
the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back to the majority.
Yeah.
You're in again,
Yeah.
you know, like, and that, like, one time my dad was like, how do you like it in San Antonio? I was like, oh, yeah, it's good. Like, I was like, we're kind of in the white part right now. He's like, my dad's white.
Okay.
My mom's Mexican.
Okay.
He was like, what do you mean the white part? I was like, look around. The
Yeah.
white people, like where I live, it doesn't look like this. I don't know what to tell you. He's like, and like we had to have a conversation about it or whatever. But like in San Antonio, we're segregated. We
Very
are
much.
extremely segregated cities. So all that to say, like, I couldn't pop up a yoga studio on the west side, south, east, any of it, and bring your typical yoga teachers and it do well, because why the fuck would it? Why would you? And so anyways, blah, 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 blah. And I also just think we don't represent teachers of color.
Yeah.
When in magazines, online, X, Y, and Z. And so it's just hard to picture. And like, even when I offer yoga at school, like sometimes I'll be like, isn't that for white women? And I'm like,
Yeah.
No, it's
guess
not
so,
for white
yeah.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then they experience it and they really like it or whatever it may be. But it's hard to see yourself doing something that no one else like you in your family, in your neighborhood, X, Y, and Z has ever
Yes.
done. And I get it. I have no interest in like I've never seen myself be a fucking tennis player because no one in my family, like, you know what I mean? Or like
Right.
there were just certain sports like on the East Coast or whatever, or in North Carolina where I lived, like field hockey, right?
Yeah.
Field hockey is in no, ice skating is in no type of North Carolina thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what are, hockey, ice hockey, those kinds of field
Yeah.
hockey. What else? Like lacrosse came later, I guess. But like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to think there's
Different
certain
areas.
sports, you know, and because that's nothing anyone around me was doing, I'm never going to
That's what
pick
I
it
was
up.
going to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Like when we were having the conversation with, I think it was with Jody, is he said, you know, men of color, black men, don't feel, they've never been given the opportunity to have some space to breathe.
Right.
yeah.
Right. And it's like when you're in that situation and like you don't know what you don't know. Right. And most people, because there are so many biases about yoga, there's so many biases about, you know, what it's about or who can take it or who can't take it. It's like
Right.
everybody should be able to take it. But as a white woman, I can't tell a black man, I can't always relate to his experience
Right.
of I never felt safe or I
Right.
never felt supported or I never had the opportunity to just stop and breathe
Right.
and have space for myself to care for myself. And I think that is culturally, from what I've seen, a lot of the problems is that you have to work really hard, right, with nothing to get someplace. And there's that feeling of like that vulnerability space that yoga provides for people is very scary. And it's scary not just for the white woman,
Yes.
but it's probably scarier for anyone of color because you don't have that opportunity to feel okay
Yeah.
in stillness.
Yeah.
Well, and then on top of, you have to get through the door and be in the class and not have been fucking profiled.
But
'Cause
it's
you
like,
can tell
you're
it's
not-
very fucking clear when, especially if someone walks in before you. Hey, how's it going? I'm like, you walk in. Are you here for the yoga class? Yeah, bitch. It's a fucking yoga studio. Like, and then the next person, hey. You know,
And how do you even say that? How do you even say like, oh, this person didn't say hi to me?
yeah.
How do you even say that? Like with your like dignity and with your like, I don't know, like, oh, this person didn't say hi to me. I feel like there's always supposed to be this like, no, like, fuck that. It doesn't matter to me. They ain't got to say hi to me anyways. And you know what I'm saying?
That makes me so mad.
And it's like, I don't want to have to be like that.
Yeah.
No.
Like I don't want to have to be like that. So I just rather not.
Yeah.
I'm ridiculously cognizant of people when they first walk in the studio, if I know them or if I don't know them. if I'm in the middle of a conversation with someone and someone walks in the studio, I immediately turn and greet that person because I don't want anyone to ever feel unseen because they're walking in. It's their time. It's not about me. It's not about the studio. It's about them moving on their mat and them feeling safe to do so. Yeah. And I've had experiences where I've had guys walk in that are like huge guys. And, you know, I'm like, hey, how are you? Have you done yoga? No? Let's go. Let me give you the tour. And I do my best to honor the person that's walking in, right? Yeah. And I try not to give off any energy. And if I ever do, I really hope that somebody tells me I'm being an asshole because that makes me so sad to think about that and to feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's systematic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
That is them, you know, with certain folks, internalized racism, internalized biases, X, Y, and Z. And then it was a decision at that studio to not address it because also like you said, how do I say you didn't say hi to me? We finally had a student say, I felt like I was discriminated against because of the color of my skin. And I was like, this is what I've been talking about. This is, because also let me tell you something else. You know what?
Go.
Can we ask our final question of like, what can other people learn? And then we can have this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So,
okay, quick. How did
I know, really quick, finish this story.
Okay. Well, first, let's just wrap that up by saying like, it matters.
Yeah.
That it really does matter. It matters. The other day I messaged you. I was in a substance use course and they prompt us to think about somebody who was so compassionate towards you, even when you were struggling. And during my YTT, I was struggling. Excuse me. And I was struggling with that. I'm not good enough. And it was so connected to race. It was so connected to a lack mindset. And you were just there trying to push me and push me and push me. And I couldn't see what she was trying to do at that time. Because I was so just tangled, you know? And that's probably like, it was another window wherever you were trying to get me and I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see past, you know, how I felt. I couldn't see past how I was treated. My first, the first time I learned I was Black, and this is why I don't use Black. The first time I learned I was Black, I was sitting in a history class in high school. And at this point, I was at like a predominantly white high school. And it was a history class, and we were going over Black history. And other students were like, why are we learning this? And the whole class turned around and looked at me.
Oh, my God.
And like, I could hear them like, that's why we're learning it. Like, she's the only one in here, you know? And so when you walk into a yoga class and that's all you see, it's like, God damn. Like,
it's not. It's
what in tarnation, dude? And so it's a little uncomfortable. But you know what? I met some awesome people. And I made some great friends too.
For life. You got friends for life.
For sure. But it does matter, you know, it does matter. And that's definitely something I want to do as a yoga teacher. I want to bring the melanated community, people of color, however you identify, I want to bring them together. And I've heard that like, it's not profitable, or are you going to open it up for other people? And I become discouraged, but essentially like, that's what I needed. And if I have to create that space myself, then I will. But those are my aspirations. For my journey.
I was going to say, so like you're working in the military right now. So when do you get to retire from there? I don't know anything about the military. Like, you don't have to be 65, obviously, to do it. So that's all I know is like retirement age, you know?
Yeah. So I retire in 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So what's your retirement dream?
So my retirement dream is to have my private practice, and do, this is going to be a sticky one because I feel like we had this conversation, but yoga and trauma-informed yoga.
We're not going to have a sticky conversation about that.
Okay. All right. But trauma-informed yoga. And I want to merge the two.
I love it.
If clients want to, because there is that important part. You guys talked about like the fight or flight. We talked about like the chakra system, all of this stuff. There is an important part that the body holds when we're processing through
Literally holds
everything. And so I would like to, my dream is to merge those two. But then also I envision like having my own studio, and the name would be Jubilee Yoga.
Oh, I love that name.
Isn't it
That's
beautiful?
a good one. Jubilee, I love it.
Yes, and it would definitely be for a space for people of color to come and practice. Yeah, so that's what I envision.
I just feel like I want to ask this question just because I feel like I don't know what I don't know.
Okay.
How do I, as a white woman, looking like every other fucking yogi in America that we think is out there, how do I do a better job of opening up space for people of color?
Can I?
Yeah, because you've experienced me as a teacher trainer, and as a mentor and as a yogi. So, it might be a little bit of a personal question.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, important. I don't ever want that to happen in the space that I'm in, ever.
Well, unfortunately, it might.
And it probably has, and I don't know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it has. Like I told you, I was in teacher training, like I was going through my own stuff that you couldn't connect with, you couldn't know, you couldn't tell. Like, there's just certain things.
Right.
Gosh, it reminds me of a study that I read, how a lot of people or professionals can't really tell or see or sense when people of color are going through emotional turmoil. And you won't know because we mask it.
Because
we've had to learn how to do that. We've not only been trained externally by white society or whoever the heck that was, but our parents have trained us to do that. So we can then go out into the world and survive.
Right.
So you won't know, but you'll have a few that'll come to you and talk to you and be open and honest. And that'll be because you guys built a bond that they know that they feel safe with you. And so you'll just have to continue to make yourself a safe space for you. And then people will know, like, okay, I can talk with her about this, even though she won't understand.
And what I was going to say, or my thought process is, like, you don't have to create safe space for people of color. Let people of color create safe space for people of color. Make room for them. So
got it.
Like,
Yeah,
that's my
sense.
opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to try to create something that's like, of course, safe space, right?
Yeah.
As a whole, as a theory.
Right.
I don't really believe in safe space. I don't think it's possible for me to create a space with multiple people in it that is safe for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Okay.
But in terms of like, okay, how do we fix this as a yoga culture? Like, how do we start to foster more yogis of color, more teachers of color? It's moving aside.
Yeah.
Like, period. Like, you have your classes, but I mean, like, nothing is gonna I can't represent black men in the studio.
Exactly.
Like, I just can't.
No,
you know
that's
what I mean?
what I'm saying.
Like, and so if I want to communicate,
Yeah, I know exactly.
damn it, I haven't figured it out yet.
Here
Yeah.
to stand for.
I was hired to represent black men in the studio. No, but like,
When we talk about black, black doesn't feel good for me because I didn't give myself that name. I'm not calling myself something someone else gave for me. It doesn't feel. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, since I was 17, like, I would be like, no, I'm brown.
Yeah.
Like, I'm brown. I'm not black. That's like for you guys. It's not for me. I didn't give myself. And so when I think about all these names and identities and all this other stuff, it's like, no, you're not. I can't. We're not gonna You know what I mean? So I like your thing where it's like you follow where other people lead you when they talk about identity. But like, I'm not adopting all these damn names, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just me. Yeah. I think in big picture, just the intersection of it all, just the economic, growing up with a single mom and, you know, not really having space to just talk about life or myself or whatever, but then, you know, being a Black girl, what that meant for other people and, you know, consequently meant for me.
I was gonna say, I liked how you said it, what that meant for other people.
Yeah.
Well, because that's how race is usually first experienced. I mean, like you said, like
that's how I found out I was Black.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's one of the things that I've discussed with my dad is he's like, what do you mean when you say you're not white? And I have said, I mean, other people perceive me that way. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I have, and especially, and it doesn't happen, it truthfully does not happen here in Texas. I have a lot of like white passing privilege in Texas. But in North Carolina, where I was clearly not white and I was clearly not Black, where there was a very strong white and Black divide line, everyone was like, what the fuck is up with you? Me and my sister call it ambiguously brown. We're like, you figure it out. Like, we're like, and we'll be like, oh, he's ambiguously brown. Like, that's tough. Like, we'll be like, who's the ambiguous brown guy over there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a joke. But like, you know, we're ambiguously brown, but we just didn't fit into any particular camp, right?
Yeah.
And I had kind of known that right now. The other day, I literally went through my yearbook, and there were maybe 5 Latino people, like in my school. I literally went through and was like, okay, found them, you know, but they were not in my classes. They were, you know what I mean? Like, because I went to a fairly large high school, right? Like, so it's just like, we all were just flittering by and never really, we'd not cross paths really. And so what I mean is I've been othered because of not being white. And like, that's evident to other people enough to bring it up to me and to call me a wetback. And you know what I mean? Like, or be like, and also to not be able to exactly pinpoint where I'm from and say really fucking racist shit to me.
Oh yeah.
But not about me, but in my presence. You're like, man, God, Mexicans are just so fucking ugly. Like, blah, blah, blah. You couldn't be like, that's what I really want to know about people. When they're like, so what are you? I'm like, oh, guess. Tell me, what do you think? And they would be like, well, you're too pretty to be Mexican. That was so
my
frequent.
God.
Which I'm Mexican, by the way.
So go fuck yourself.
Bingo! You know what I mean? Like, hit the nail on the fucking head.
You fucking
Yeah, so,
kidding
and so I'm like, so that's really, I wanted to see how you fucking think.
Yeah.
Feel free. Show your hand. Show your fucking hand. Like,
gosh.
so, well, you're too pretty to be Mexican. You're too tall to be this. You're too, like, shit like that. And so that's something I've had to explain to my dad, which, because he's white, you know, like, but he also is it's complicated for him because he doesn't want me to, he is like, well, he gets offended that I say I'm not white because he is worried that I'm othering myself and demeaning myself by doing so.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
he's like,
that's
well, I don't want
interesting.
you to think that you like are less than. And it's like, you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
And like, exactly. And I'm like, well, then do you think that about people of color? You know,
Yes.
and then
do you feel like you're higher?
and
than
I don't think
No,
he does.
I don't think he does.
And I don't,
other people?
But, and that's
That
what I've also
sucks.
said, right? And then also, he also does not really identify with white America because he's an immigrant. So he's from Germany. And he did
Interesting.
not grow up speaking English. And then, you know, within school, he was othered from the white Americans and, you know, treated like he was stupid and teachers treated him like shit. You know what I mean? Because he didn't speak English.
Yeah.
And so he's like, he does not identify with white America.
Yeah.
And then simultaneously, and so I think that's also another layer, you know, as it relates to my dad and him. And I think also when I say that I'm not white or that I am a person of color or whatever it may be, I think it's very conscious of that. That is how then I was treated growing up. And it's like, well, yeah. Like, that's what I'm telling you.
That was my experience.
In Eastern North Carolina, that's how I was treated.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's what you took us. Like, that's how it went. You know what I mean?
It
Like,
matters. It plays a role on
plays
your
a
life
and
experience.
your psyche. We might half this episode. Like,
Absolutely.
just-
I know. We've been talking to you almost as long as we talked to
That's why I
Southside
have to come
Johnny.
tomorrow because I do have to go home.
I know you
by
do.
the way, Jay, you're texting.
I do have to go home.
I know.
She's like, I do have to get out of here.
Well, let's
I forgot to
try
put
our
deodorant
best.
on, too.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay.
Let's do our best to wrap it up.
Familiar.
There's two questions we did not ask.
Okay, go ahead.
The one is, when did other people start to notice a change in you off your mat? Like,
Immediately.
yeah,
Kayla could tell. Kayla, my wife,
Immediately.
could tell immediately.
because of the ability to hold quiet space for yourself
Yes.
and not be so angry.
Exactly. And not reacting and responding, wanting to talk more. But I was also going through my master's program for social work. So they kind of went hand in hand. So I was doing a lot of inner work. And so she was able to tell almost immediately that my demeanor had changed, my just ability to be at the table without flipping my lid was definitely there.
Yeah.
I mean, because we talk about like all these environmental things and we talked about my story and all this other stuff. And, you know, all of that kind of just, it compiles. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then when life requests another version of you, then you're like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with all of this?
Yes. Yes.
What am I supposed to do with all of this? And so when I committed, I definitely committed. And yeah, I was able to tell right away. She was able to tell right away.
So what can others learn from your story?
I feel like others can learn that showing yourself is not as bad as you might think it will be. I don't know. I'm sure there's another way to say that,
No,
but yeah,
that makes sense.
showing yourself is okay.
Wow.
You know, even if you don't get it right every single time, you keep practicing, you know? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us
Thank you.
and having a long ass conversation.
I know, but I've been
Thanks so
waiting
much.
for this for a long time because when I first met you and you were in my class and you were coming, there was I had an immediate connection to you. And I wanted to always be there, ride or die for you.
Yeah.
And I wanted people to hear your story because I knew what you had to say was super important.
Yeah. Thank you.
This was fun.
It was fun.
All right, yogis. Thanks for listening.